Chris, we're live. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Chris Leslie, the Director of Resources, and in the absence of a chairman and vice chairman, I am opening proceedings this afternoon. In a moment, I will call for nominations for chairman of this meeting. Members, before we proceed, can you please ensure your videos and microphones are turned off? Can I now ask any member wishing to nominate for the position of chairman for this meeting to please unmute your microphone, turn on your video, and state your name and nomination.
Councillor Nunn would like to nominate Councillor Mark Hurd for this meeting.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. I have a nomination and I have Councillor Skeen seconding. Given there are no other nominations, could I ask members if...
Please. Recorded vote, please, Mr. Leslie.
Good, mate. Tara, can we do a recorded vote? Or do we need members to vote on that?
Yes, of course, members. As normal, I'm going to call the names out alphabetically. If you could just indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
Tara, I think it needed to be seconded, the request for a recorded vote. I don't know that anybody seconded that.
I'll second that, Councillor Bell.
Okay, all right, but I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miss Beale. Okay, she's online. Councillor Brian Beale. Councillor Bell.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Durham. Councillor Edwards.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Fleming.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hurd.
I feel I should abstain from this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Helm.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Hull.
Agreed.
Councillor Hull. Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvis.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Agreed, Tara, thank you.
Councillor Mays.
Agreed, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Morley.
He'll be under apologies. I'm afraid he can't. Oh, I'm sorry. He's not qualified to vote because he wasn't in attendance the first time round, so he isn't here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morris.
4.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Skeens.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
4.
Councillor Stilts.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
4.
And Councillor Miss White. The result of that vote is 21 for, nobody against and 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Tara. I will now hand over to Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. And thank you, members, for your confidence in me to chair this meeting. Members, this is another opportunity to hear these applications, and I hope in full. This meeting is a continuation of last Thursday's abandoned meeting, and I will be relying on Rule 8 and Rule 10 of our Constitution for good order. I feel I should refer to last week's meeting briefly, where derogatory comments were made against some officers. I do not support these comments. So, good afternoon and welcome to this special district planning meeting today on Thursday, the 20th of August 2020. My name is Councillor Mark Hurd, and as you've just seen, I have been appointed chairman for this meeting. This meeting is held under new regulations which come into effect on the 4th of April in response to the COVID-19 situation. And there are just a few housekeeping issues to run through. First of all, could I please ask everyone present in this meeting to ensure that your microphone remains muted and your video feed off when not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noises and avoid any unintentional disturbances. This meeting is being hosted remotely, streamed live and recorded, and by being present in the meeting, you are given your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Members are reminded that apart from indicating you wish to speak or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for any other purpose. Please do not use the raise hand function, as this is not available on all member devices. When speaking and referring to the agenda papers, please ensure you reference a page or paragraph number. And lastly, if members need to leave the meeting at any point, please do make this known and use the chat function to signify that you need to leave the meeting. Now, if I may ask officers taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Dodson.
Good afternoon, members. Paul Dodson, Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Mr. Holmes.
Good afternoon, members. Richard Holmes, Director of Service Delivery.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Matthew Lee, Lead Specialist Place at Morton District Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Turner.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Devon Herner, Specialist in Development Management.
Thank you. And Ms. Matthews.
I'll be representing Miss Matthews today, Hannah Dungate, Planning Specialist, Service Delivery.
Thank you, Hannah. Mr. Quelch.
Simon Quelch, and I'm the Lead Legal Specialist and Monitoring Officer.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bird.
Good afternoon, Tara Bird, Committee Services Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Please could I ask any other officers to identify themselves.
Good afternoon, members. Georgina Button, Brabble Programme Lead.
Okay, thank you, Georgina. Tara, could I please ask you now to carry out a roll call, calling the members in alphabetical order?
Yes, Chairman. Members, if you could just indicate when your name's called if you're in attendance, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
Yes, I'm here, Tara. Thank you.
Councillor Bassinger.
I'm present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. Councillor Brian Beale. Councillor Bell.
Present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Durham. Councillor Edwards.
Present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Fleming.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hurd. Present.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Helm.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hull.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Keys. Councillor Keys.
Apologies from Councillor Keys. So this is Thompson. Apologies from Councillor Keys, please. I believe he was away last time, so wouldn't be eligible to vote anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Present, thank you, Tara.
Councillor Lagan.
Present, thanks, Tara.
Mays.
Present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn.
Present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Present, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
Good afternoon, Tara. Present.
Good afternoon. Councillor Skeens.
Present, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Good afternoon, Tara. Present.
Councillor Swain.
Yes, present, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Present, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Miss White. That's the attendance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Tara. Agenda item number 2 is apologies for absence. So may I have the apologies for absence, please, Tara?
Yes, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mrs Channer, Councillor Dewitt, Councillor Harker, Councillor Keys and Councillor Morley. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item.
Chairman, can I just say that Anne Beale gave her apologies to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bamford. Is that noted, Tara?
Yes, that's noted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, declaration of interest. This is to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. The members are reminded that they're also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the chat function now to indicate, and I will invite you to speak. Tara, can you advise if any member has indicated a wish to speak, please?
Yes, Chairman. So far I've got 4 members, Councillor Fluker, Councillor Nunn, Councillor Mays, Councillor Lagan and Councillor Skeens as well, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take those in that order then. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 8, I've got a perceived bias, and agenda item 9, I missed part of the debate previously, so I can't take part in any of those items, so I shall be leaving the meeting now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Item 8, Knowles Farm. Like some of the rest of you, I'm sure, I've received correspondence from the developer. So this is declaring the receipt of that correspondence non-pecuniary. And item 9, Bradwell, I've received a number of emails from individual parties interested in the Bradwell situation, again, non-pecuniary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Nunn. Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 8, as I know the owner of some of the land at Knowles Farm, and also, like Councillor Nunn, I've received some correspondence from the developer. Item number 9, non-pecuniary, as I sit on the working group and have also received emails and some letters regarding Bradwell B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very similar to my colleagues. Item number 8, non-pecuniary, received correspondence from the developer, and also agenda item 9, Bradwell, have also been in conversation and meetings and received a significant number of emails regarding this development. Non-pecuniary, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Legg. And Councillor Skeens.
Hello, yes, item 9, Bradwell B. I am also in receipt of a correspondence, non-pecuniary, and I think I should declare that I'm part of the working group. I'm not sure whether that's necessary, but I do it every time and nobody says it isn't, so I better carry on doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tara, are there any other declarations?
Yes, Chairman, I've got a few more. Councillor Shaughnessy, Councillor Morris wishes to raise a point of clarification, and then also Councillors Fleming, Bassinger and Bell, Chairman.
Chairman, also me, I haven't got the chat function. Councillor Edwards.
I keep asking to speak, Chairman, and I'm not getting acknowledged. Is anything coming from when I'm asking to speak, Chairman? It's Councillor Stamp. Twice I've put it in there, I'd like to say.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard from you, Councillor Stamp.
Yes, because I've been using the chat function, Chairman, which is what you asked me to do, but I'm being ignored.
I'm just going through the list now. I will add your name to the list. Okay.
Councillor Heard.
Thank you.
And me, Councillor Edwards, please, Chairman.
Yes, I have you on there. So, Councillor Shaughnessy first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, item 8, non-pecuniary, as I also, as a lot of councillors, have had correspondence from the developer, and I also am known to one of the objectors on this item. And item 9, BRB, many emails relating to this as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Shaughnessy. Councillor Morris, you have a point of clarification.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would just like to request to know whether or not the part that is intended to go into P&C will actually be voted on, because myself and quite a few residents are very concerned that we might be bullied in private, and would obviously like to see exactly what's going on, as I would like them to see as well. So I would just seek a confirmation from yourself that we will have a recorded vote about whether or not we receive this report in P&C, private and confidential, because I think the people have a right to know what we're going to be threatened with.
Okay, thank you for that. I can confirm that we will be having a vote. It will be a recorded vote if requested and seconded by any other member.
I've just requested it.
Okay, thank you.
I will second that, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I have. I've got. Sorry, I can't read my writing here. I've got Councillor Bass, but somebody else said that they would like to declare after that. Can you help me, Tara?
Councillor Fleming, Chairman.
Councillor Fleming, sorry.
Yeah.
And Thompson, please.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9, just to declare that I won't be able to take part in the debate or vote because I missed part of the debate due to connection problems last time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 8, I received correspondence. Item 9, I am sitting on the BRB working group, so non-pecuniary for both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Yes, apologies for no camera, Chair. I'm having some bandwidth issues. I'm slightly confused. Everybody, as far as I know, has received some correspondence around item 9, as all members have been included, but as others are declaring in the interests of openness and transparency, I suppose I must declare as well also. So that would be non-pecuniary item 9. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Item 8, non-pecuniary. I have met with the developer, although some years ago on parish business, but I also have received the letter. Item 9, I have also received emails regarding BRB. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you. Apparently my chat's not working, Chairman, so I don't know how you want to deal with this. Two things. I'm not going to declare any non-pecuniary interest because we all get emails from residents and everybody else regarding planning applications. And unless the council decide that we have to, I think it's a total waste of time. The second thing, Chairman, is I wasn't attending last week's meeting. Does that preclude me or exclude me from anything to do with today's meeting? I was present at the first initial hearings and applications 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Am I entitled to still participate on this one, please? I'm sure I am, but just for clarity. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. I think we only had one item of business which was completed and we hadn't quite started on the other, but I will ask Mr Quelch to confirm that.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Stamp is right, Chairman. Of course, she can participate because we did not get to those two other matters.
No. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
very much. Thank you very much. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Like everybody else, non-pecuniary 8 and 9 because we all received this correspondence, but also as I am a Morden South councillor as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Again, apologies for no camera. I similarly have bandwidth issues on and off, and I wouldn't like to lose my connection. Until the very beginning of this week, I was a member of the BRB working group. Thank you. I was there and as part of a position, not as a name, so that I'm no longer, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tara, can I just confirm that I've also received correspondence in relation to agenda item 8 and 9, but it's again non-pecuniary. Councillor Helm.
Sorry, Mr Chairman, I've had to do it this way. I'm a member of the Bradwell Working Group, item 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the member of the Bradwell Working Group?
That's it. Thank you.
I'm grateful. Thank you. For those members who cannot use the chat function, I think it might be better just to switch your camera on briefly and then I'll be able to see that you need to speak, and perhaps we can utilise that. Are there any other members who wish to make a declaration? Councillor Skeens.
Can I just ask a question through the chair of Simon Quelch about the this declaration of interest? Is it necessary for us to declare that we're members of Bradwell Working Group, and is it necessary to declare that we've had letters as Councillor Stamp outlined?
Thank you, Mr Quelch.
Yes, I'm glad Councillor Skeens asked that question because it is very relevant. The Code of Conduct sets out quite definitively what is a non-pecuniary interest, and receiving correspondence from developers or third parties is not a disclosure, does not give you a non-pecuniary interest. Likewise, being a part of a working group that belongs to the council, an internal work group, likewise does not give you a non-pecuniary interest. If you were on an outside body and there was something relevant to that, then yes, that would be non-pecuniary, but not an internal working group.
Okay, I hope members can note that. Any other declarations?
Chairman, that seems to be everybody that's indicated on the chat function.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is in advance of the next item, which I thought might be beneficial now. They're actually legal questions for Mr Quelch or Mr Lee. Firstly, though, I would say if you read the actual section referred to for exclusion of, under item 4, and you read the section in the relevant act, it seems to me quite clear that we do have to take the legal advice in confidence. My specific questions, which I want to clarify, might be helpful to other members. 1, what was the authority for engaging counsel? Secondly, is engaging counsel considered to be an operational issue?
Councillor Swain, before we move on to that, I just need to go through a couple of things. Those questions will be answered, but I'd like to go through the normal process, but I will come to you.
Well, yes, I mean, they don't really have an effect on the vote on item 4, but
okay, but I will come back. I will come back to you but before we move into the private session, I will defer to the monitoring officer to take us through the process for the remainder of the meeting.
Can I ask the questions then at the beginning of item 4?
I just need to speak to the monitoring officer first. I'm happy to hear what you've got to say. Mr. Quelch, is that all right for Councillor Swain to ask his question?
Yes, I'm happy to deal with that now or afterwards, whenever you want to, Chairman.
Okay, well, go ahead, Councillor Swain.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. There were 4 questions. First was, what was the authority for engaging council? Secondly, is engaging council considered to be an operational matter? And bearing in mind that council is reporting to the local planning authority, is there a legal distinction between council and the district council as local planning authority? And that arising out of that, the question is, to whom is the advice confidential?
Okay.
Mr. Quelch.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the authority. I think that the first and second questions really are the same because it is an operational. Second question really answers the first question. Legal advice can either be given by me or it can be given by someone outside. Either way, it's still legal advice. So it's an operational matter. So officers obviously have the discretion. If they think that they need some legal advice on a particular matter, then I can be asked to give it. If I don't feel I have the expertise or someone of greater weight than I needs to be instructed, then that advice will be given by an outside person, but it's still legal advice. And so it's inoperational. For example, I'm giving you legal advice now. It's internal. The fact that it's external doesn't change it. It's still legal advice on an operational level. It's just that we need specialist legal advice sometimes. And we do that all the time. You will have known, Councillor Swain, when, for example, we were dealing with certain contracts, which I won't go into. We took outside solicitors' advice on that. We also took Council's advice. Again, that was operational. On question 3, LPA and the council, are they separate? The council is the local planning authority, if that answers that for you.
Right, okay, yes, thank you.
And I think there was a 4th question as well. I'm sorry, Councillor Swain.
Probably answered that then. I was asking to whom it is confidential.
Right.
That includes everybody then, officers and members.
It is confidential to the council because the council is the LPA.
Yes, right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before I move on into request for private session, is there anything else that you wanted to add, Mr. Quelch?
Chairman, would it be helpful if I just go through what is going to be proposed in the sense of the procedure to be followed? Because this is perhaps a little different from the norm. Would that be helpful, Chairman?
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Okay. The proposed procedure is as follows, that members obviously will need to vote on whether, first of all, the 2 pieces of advice on the 2 planning applications should be taken in private and confidential. And that requires members to, in effect, in their minds, make 2 decisions, although obviously it's dealt with in 1 vote. And the first one is the information in respect of which a claim, that this particular advice is information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings. Obviously, the public inquiry is a legal proceeding in the sense that it is set by statute under Section 78 of the Town and Country Planning Act. So it is a forum that adjudicates on rights, namely planning rights. And the second question that members have to ask themselves is, if they're satisfied it is information in respect to which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained. Is it in all the circumstances in the public interest to maintain the exemption, or is that outweighed by the public having sight and knowledge of the information? So in other words, when members make a vote, they've got to merge those two. If they're satisfied with question 1, then they need to go on to answer question 2, the public interest test. If they're not satisfied on question 1, in other words, is there an attraction of legal professional privilege, then they don't need to go on and answer the public interest test. They would obviously therefore vote against the motion. So either one of those two tests, if both aren't satisfied, then members vote against the motion. If members are satisfied that it is, then they vote for it. On this, I would just like to make one point on this. If members vote against this motion, then that means the legal advice on one or both, depending on the decision of members, because they could separate them off into the different applications. If members vote that the matter should be heard in public, including legal advice, that legal advice is then available to the two developers. And members already have sight of that legal advice, so they know what it says. That advice would therefore be available to the lawyers of both applicants. If members decide to vote in favour of the motion, the idea then, Chairman, is that in P&C, both legal advices will be considered on both applications. But then members would come into open session and make a decision on each application in turn. I believe it's Knowles Farm first, and then it's Bradwell. The decision needs to be made in public, and members of the public need to see how people are voting. I hope that clarifies matters, Chairman.
I think it does. Thank you very much. So really, members, what we will be deciding is to receive the legal advice in private and then have an open discussion in relation to that application. Okay, so in that case then, is there, I've had the chat go off a couple of times, Tara. I know a couple of people wanted to speak before we move into private session. Can you assist?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Nunn wishes to ask a question.
Thank you, Councillor Nunn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's a question for Mr. Quelch, actually. When the external legal party were instructed, or both, when they were instructed, were they instructed and did they provide the advice on the basis that it was legally privileged and that it would be discussed in camera?
Chairman, are you happy for me to answer that?
If you're satisfied,
yes, I'm happy to answer that. They weren't specifically told this advice will be heard in private and confidential. They were purely asked for their advice. When the advice was received, it becomes the advice given to the local authority, and the local authority then needs to decide whether that advice should be available to the world at large or whether it should be dealt with privately.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So then I propose that we now move into private session, and I move that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972 that the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 5 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, and that this satisfies the public interest. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Councillor.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. We'll take a vote on that?
Yes, please.
Chairman, there was a request for recorded vote that was seconded.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will take that recorded vote then, please, Tara.
Thank you, members. I'll call your names out alphabetically. If you could just indicate if you're for, against or abstaining, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford.
Sorry, Chair, can we just confirm what we are actually voting for? Against it going into session, private session, or for it going into private session? What
okay, thank you. Yes, the motion is for us to move into private session. If you agree with that, please say for, and if you do not, please say against. Councillor Schemes.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we haven't really debated the issues here. We've heard from the monitoring officer, which has been useful, but this is quite an important decision, and especially in connection with Bradwell B, where there is a concern that advice may include, of course I've no idea what it includes, but it may include information that we can't resist because of financial pressures. And that is something that is definitely, if that is the case, a speculation I admit, but a possible speculation, then we kind of need to know, well then, if that is a possibility, then my feeling is that particular piece of information should be made public to explain the actions of the council.
Thank you for that. I think I would be right in saying, Mr. Quelch, that we can receive this information and we can speak about the content of it. Am I right in saying the content of it in open session?
Chairman, no. If members decide that it should be heard in P&C, then the content should not be discussed. And as well, perhaps, Chairman, it might be helpful if I could just answer Councillor Skeen's point. All members should have read the legal advice. It was with the agenda. And so members should already be aware of the contents of that advice. So members will know there is no reference to the financial pressures that will be put under. There is advice on what orders could be made, but there is nothing that actually says the council must not do this because it cannot afford it.
Okay, thank you.
But Chairman, members should all know that because it's already available to them.
Yes, I understand that. Tara, are there any other members who want to speak before we take the vote?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Swain have asked to speak.
My question's been addressed about the legal advice already being in the pack. Thank you. So no need to ask.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to make the point that I've heard all of those comments. It does seem to me to make common sense for us to take the legal advice in private session. I think that seems like the sort of right format, but that doesn't mean, of course, that later on, when we debate the actual issues in sort of public session, we can't sort of comment on those aspects, it seems to me. But initially, it's quite clear that this is the usual practice to take legal advice in private session, because it seems to me it's not really sensible to essentially give the applicants our information. That seems to be sort of the wrong thing to do. We've sought legal advice. We should debate that privately, and I would just urge councillors to follow the advice with regards to that item. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Swain, briefly, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It might be helpful if Mr. Quelch could clarify the situation that we have if even after the debate on the two applications, we are still in a position where we refuse one or other, and the officers would not support that position in relation to an appeal, what position does that put members in?
Mr. Crouch.
Yes, this goes into some extent the legal advice, so I will have to be quite circumspect here. Answering it briefly, it places the local authority and the officers in an extremely difficult position.
Okay, so we've now got the we've had the advice. The vote has been seconded. So Tara, could you take the vote alphabetically? If you are for it going into closed session, you would say for, and if you're against. Thank you, Tara.
Chairman, just picking up from the chat function, Councillor Bell's asked a question about taking the items separately.
Yes, is that seconded?
I'll second that, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. So that is seconded. So we'll take the two of them separately. So we'll go with. Okay, Tara, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the first vote will be in relation to Knowles Farm.
Knowles Farm.
Okay, members. So starting with Councillor Bamford. Please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce.
For.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hurd.
I will abstain.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Councillor Hull.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Siddle.
For.
Councillor Skeens.
For.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Councillor Stilts.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
For.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
As the result of that vote is 19 for, nobody against and 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. Can we now move on to the second part of the advice, which is in relation to Bradwell, and the same again, please, Tara.
Yes, Chairman. So members, as before, if you could just indicate for, against or abstaining, please, starting with Councillor Bamford. Thank you.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
Against.
Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
And Councillor Edwards.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Fleming.
For.
Councillor Hurd.
I will abstain.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Councillor Hull.
For.
Councillor Jarvis.
For. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
For, please, Tara.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
public have a right to know. Against?
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn.
For.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Siddle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Skeens.
I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
For. You can't pick and choose, Tara.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stilts.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. The results of that vote are 15 for, 4 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Tara. That's exactly what I make it as well. So I will now ask committee services to pause the live stream to the public website along with the recording of the meeting. Members of the public listening to our live stream, I thank you for joining us. We will return in due course to make a decision in open session.
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm that we are now back live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of the public listening to our live stream, I thank you for your patience. This meeting is being reconvened at 15:13 in open session. So we now move to agenda item number 8, land north and west of Knowles Farm, Wick Hill in Malden. And this is found on pages 45 to 194. And I will now call on the officer to present this item. Ms Matthews, please, could you present the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Hannah Dungate speaking on behalf of Miss Matthews. This is a summary of the officer presentation made to the last District Planning Committee in July. By way of an herbal update to members before we move on, the RAMS contribution discussed at paragraph 4.4.2 and sections 5.8 and 7 of the officer's report, as well as in the heads of terms, is out of date and should be updated to reflect an increased fee of £125.58 per dwelling, which is due to indexation as part of the new financial year. This application seeks outline planning permission on a strategic allocation in Malden for a mixed-use development of up to 320 dwellings. It also includes the provision of B1 employment land, community uses and a relief road. All matters of detail are reserved for future determination as part of reserved matters applications, except for means of access to the site, which is considered as part of this application. This report is an update to that considered at Planning Committee in March 2017, at which it was resolved to grant planning permission for the development, subject to a Section 106 agreement being signed and conditions being imposed. As the Section 106 agreement has not been completed, outline planning permission has not currently been issued. As you can see from this slide, it just shows the locations of the Knowles Farm buildings here, Morrison's here, and the Linden Home site, which is currently being built out. This slide shows the location of the current application site within the South Morden Garden suburb as a whole. The application site also forms part of the South Morden Master Plan framework. As part of the application submitted, an indicative phasing plan has also been received, suggesting that the site could be developed into 4 phases. However, a detailed phasing scheme would be submitted prior to the developer seeking approval for any of the reserved matters. A number of parameter plans have also been included within the application, which would form part of the outline planning permission if granted. These include a land use plan, which shows the residential land in yellow, employment land in blue, and community uses in purple. This is the access and movement parameter plan, a landscape parameter plan, building story heights parameter plan, which shows up to 2 stories in the lighter colour, up to 2.5 stories in the medium blue, and up to 3 stories in the darker blue. This is a residential density parameter plan showing medium to high density, notified by the lighter and the dark blue. This is also an illustrative master plan included within the application. The Linden Homes roundabout has already been constructed with 1 arm into the application site. Here are some photos showing that roundabout in place. There is also another roundabout proposed adjacent to Limehouse Farm at the southern end of the Relief Road. And at the northern end of the Relief Road is a new junction onto Wick Hill. Here are some additional photos of the site. And this slide just includes a summary of the updates that have occurred since March 2017. The most poignant obviously being that the local development plan is now approved, the MPPF has been revised, we now seek RAMS contributions for applications, and the South Morden Relief Road would be constructed by Essex County Council Highways as opposed to the developer. So to summarise then, this application is for 320 dwellings with affordable housing, which accords with the strategic allocation in the LDP for a minimum of 300 units at the site. There is provision for B1 employment development up to 2,000 square metres, C2 and D1 community uses, open space and pedestrian and cycle links to the South Morden Garden suburb and the wider area. There would also be contributions towards strategic infrastructure, including education and early years, South Morden, Relief Road, as well as the other requirements. This allocation is the final site in the South Morden Garden suburb to be granted planning permission, with the other 2 sites now approved. Partial, one of the sites has been implemented. It facilitates the delivery of the South Morden Relief Road and will also make a strategic contribution to the council's 5-year housing land supply. The application is consistent with the requirements of the MPPF, the Local Development Plan and the Infrastructure Delivery Plan, as well as the principles of the Strategic Master Plan framework. As the development proposed accords with the site allocation in the LDP, it is therefore recommended for approval subject to a Section 106 agreement being signed and conditions imposed as set out in the report. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Tara, have any members indicated that they would like to speak?
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Nunn and Councillor Jarvis have indicated they wish to speak. Thank you.
And Councillor Edwards, I note that, thank you. I'll go with Councillor Nunn first, please. Councillor Nunn? Okay, we'll come back to him.
Yes.
Oh, you're there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a bit of a connection issue. Just a point of accuracy, really, Chair, that mention has been made of Limehouse Farm. I believe it's Linebrook Farm.
Quite correct.
My apologies if I got that incorrect, sorry.
Well done. Thank you, Hannah. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. I just wanted to ask a few questions, really, of the officers as we're debating this matter. In their opinion, do they feel that the relief road will get built, say within the next 3 years? And do they feel that there is sufficient money to build the relief road? And would they be able to make the conditions more robust to ensure that this rather key feature is more guaranteed? And if not, do they consider that the lack of a relief road would cause reasonable harm with regards to the development? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. The relief road is delivered through funding from a number of schemes, which the others have already been granted planning permission, and this is the final money in the pot, for want of a better phrase. So, to be honest, without granting planning permission for this site, I can guarantee the relief road won't be coming forward. Partly also because obviously it physically sits on this piece of land. What's important to remember is that the previous applicant, or the previous iterations application that members saw in 2017, required the same level of financial contribution as this application does. The difference was that the applicant was to build the road, but that would have only been if the appropriate pot of money was still there. That matter hasn't changed. It's just that Essex County Council will be building the road. Question is about, will it be built? It's always a difficult question for officers to ever say anything will be built, because it's outside us as the council's control. And to a certain extent, it becomes a bit of a moot point based on the other two questions, and which are about, is it necessary and can conditions? Yeah, conditions can be imposed. I think if I remember correctly, I take members' attention to condition 8 in the officer's report in relation to a strategic phasing plan, which is required prior to submission of the first reserved matters application, which will require that only certain levels of development could be undertaken, and that's how we will ensure that the capacity isn't exceeded within the highway network. And certainly I think I need to move on to your next question to be able to fully answer that one, which relates to the harm. There is capacity within the highway network as now. There is always harm from any development, and any scheme that produces a new dwelling, whether it's 1, whether it's 100 or it's 1,000, will have impacts on the highway. But it's about assessing whether that is unreasonable level of harm to what a man on the Clapham omnibus would think. What that means is that just because you might have to wait at a junction a little bit longer, or there might be more cars on the road, it's not automatically harmful. The Highway Authority have accepted that a certain number of dwellings can still be built without exceeding the capacity that sits within Malden District Malden Districts, not the council, the District Malden's highway network. And the phasing condition would be tied in with that to ensure that there wouldn't be any harm. So if the relief road did not come forward, it shouldn't be a problem, because there shouldn't be any additional housing or community land, or however we've phased it through the agreement, to ensure that the harm doesn't exist. So there would be a cap on development, for want of a better phrase, that would ensure that the capacity within the network wasn't exceeded. Hopefully that's answered your questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Jarvis?
Well, I thank Officer Lee for giving us that detailed answer. I have to say, I think from a layman perspective, we would look at this and say there was a deal made at some point where a relief road seemed to be guaranteed. Now it seems to be less certain. So I can understand people having some concern, but I thank Officer Lee, for giving us that detailed response. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for Matt Lee, through the Chair. I have 2 questions. Firstly, at the last meeting, I understood that some 106 money was to be taken from the North Heybridge Garden suburb to finance the Knowles Farm link road on the basis that the traffic from the North Haybridge Garden suburb would use the Knowles Farm link road. My question is, first of all, what evidence does the applicant have for that? And I would argue that the reverse is more likely. Traffic is much more likely to go from the Knowles Farm link road to Haybridge and the A12, Tiptree and Colchester than traffic from the North Haybridge Garden suburb to Chelmsford. If we're not careful, the North Haybridge Garden suburb will run out of money to build the North Haybridge Garden suburb link road, and so Haybridge will not only lose a possible flood alleviation scheme, but the link. Sorry, I've clicked a button. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we've got you back now.
Lose the flood alleviation scheme, but the link road as well. That's my first question. And my second one is that the developer has or is making provision for a health hub. Now, will the access to the health hub be on the same road that the access to the residential area be the same one, or will be a separate access to the health hub? Because then you'll have patients coming into the health hub who actually don't live on the residential side. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. So that's money from the North Haybridge suburb to pay for the South Malden one and the provision for the health hub access. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. The North Haybridge Garden suburb query, I think, is something that's maybe has grown and been taken slightly out of context. What the point is that the in relation to Section 1, as I said before, and members know, normally a Section 106 is tied in very strictly for what it can and can't be done. And that ties very specifically. My understanding is that when it comes to the contributions to the North Haybridge Garden suburbs, there is some ambiguity, for want of a better phrase, or a little bit of wiggle room for any monies that is left over, rather than having to be returned to the developer, to be used on another site, because there is acceptance that the vehicular movements may cause impact further within the district. So it wouldn't, there's not an automatic that this monies from another site is going to be used for this to deliver this. If so, I think members need to allay that, hopefully allay those fears that is not what has been suggested.
Sorry, yeah. I thought it was at the last meeting.
No, I think, yeah, sorry, through you, Chairman. Yeah, I think there was a discussion point around this, because I think Essex have said about there is a ability to move some room, but what that is that if there is excess left over, normally we would have to return it to developers. But with this, there is a point that there is a bit of worded slightly differently, so we can offset other harm within the district. So if there is monies left over, we would be able to put that towards this, for example. We could put it somewhere else if there's a accepted issue. If there isn't an issue, we'd still have to give it back. But we just were quite aware that the Haybridge Garden suburb might cause some other harm further out. So that's how the council's dealt with that. And I think that may have been a bit of a stumbling block, and I apologise if I was one of those problems with that last time at committee. We didn't get across that point accurately, because I do think that was something that members picked up at the time and were concerned at. So hopefully should allay your fears and any other members regarding that. In relation to the health hub, I can't really comment on that because there is no health hub as part of this application. What there is, though, is community land, and that phasing plan will take into account the uses of the land that come off of this relief road. So I know we're talking about the housing because that's what we've normally talked about, and that's the big issue. But that phasing plan would also build in uses of the community land as well, because they come off that. The commercial land is different because it has a separate access. So okay. It's in its entirety. We will look at the various points and the car movements and ensure that the impact doesn't happen. As you said, it's unlikely that if there's community land, whether it's a health hub, whether it's a village hall or whatever, it's unlikely that all those residents will only come from the new housing. We totally get that, and the system accepts that. And what it's done is designed to allow an overall traffic assessment. So the phasing will cap it. It may be and overall it's not just the housing, just also in case members were worried about that. Hopefully I've allayed your fears in relation to those 2 points.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So can I ask both members and officers to keep their questions and responses concise? We've been going 2.5 hours now, but I do want to make sure that this gets a good airing. Tara, I've got councillors Bamford, Swain, Shaughnessy and Morris to speak next. Do you have any others?
No, Chairman, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make members very clear on this, which I think the officers could have made this more clearer to members, that this application was agreed before. So we have agreed the housing. It is a strategic site in the LDP. So it is important that that part of it is explained, because the reason it's come back, and this is the second time it's come back, is because the Section 106 agreement required the developer to fund the road, and now it's changed. So the Essex County Council is now funding the road. So that's the only change really to anything as far as I'm aware. And I think we now are totally reliant on our expert planners and officers to make sure that they robustly liaise with Essex County Council over this. We get the phasing plan completely right. And if there is some demonstrable harm, which is when we can take action, and that is not from a resident's point of view, it's from a planning point of view, that we take action immediately to resolve this, because this road is so important to the district. And that's why we had major concerns last time. So on the basis that the officers can assure us that they're going to do all that, I'm quite happy, Chairman, to propose that this application is agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seconded.
Thank you. Before we... Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Before we go any further, as I say, we've been going for 2.5 hours now. I'm going to propose that we have a short comfort break. Do we think that 10 minutes would be sufficient?
Five, Mr. Chairman.
5 minutes. Okay. Is that okay with you, Tara?
Yes, Chairman. It's probably best if you set a time that we're going to be come back at. It's probably the easiest thing.
All right. Okay. The time now I've got it as 3:33. I suggest we come back at 3:40.
Agreed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Log out, yeah.
So at this stage, do we, Tara, do we log off or do we just pause?
Members can stay logged on. What we'll do is we'll just pause the live recording. So if you just bear with me, I'll confirm that's been done.
Okay. Once we've done that, we'll pause, and 3:40, if members could be back as quickly as they could, please. Thank you.
Yeah, confirm we're back live now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, members and members of the public and officers. So we finished with a point from Councillor Bamford. I'm now going to move on to the next speaker, which is Councillor Swain. Your question, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to confirm the question of these accesses. There is an access from the commercial area separate from the residential, and from what the officer showed, the community area is on the other side, as I understand it, of what would be the relief road. It showed a roundabout, so I'm not sure whether there is another access from either the residential area or the employment area onto that relief road there, or whether it's solely an access to the community area. My question then is, if it comes to this question of a delay or over building the relief road, whether the temporary access that has been talked about would in fact be the access that is shown on the diagram of rather complex junction, or would it be something simpler? But the other point is, of course, if this is essentially a separate area and has an access road onto Wick Hill, it seems to me that there's no reason why that cannot be started on much sooner. It doesn't have to be the last stage of the whole development, but could be discussed and organised with the county council much sooner. The question of the whole extent of the relief road and whether it will be helping Heybridge one way or the other, this is all, and the links to the A12, this is all to do with the highway structure and not really directly connected to the development at Knowles Farm. Picking up what Councillor Bamford has said, this has essentially been agreed, and the problems we have are not with Dartmouth Park Estates, they're going to be with Essex County Council. So I think there's no reason why we shouldn't progress this planning application and carry the fight onto Essex County Council highways.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Lee, so I think we've got three questions there: the roundabout access, the timing of the relief road, and the extent. Is that correct?
Well, and whether the temporary access quote could be actually started to open up the community area earlier.
Okay, I'll move over to Mr. Lee to respond, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will actually pass it over to the case officer, Ms. Matthews. But obviously, what I would like to highlight is this is an outline application at this stage, so things such as the community land use will still need to come in for a reserve matters application. But I'll pass over to Ms. Matthews.
Okay, I think it's Hannah, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Catherine Matthews is. I am here. I wasn't sure about how my availability this afternoon, so I didn't want to be sort of the main officer, but I am here to answer questions as the case officer, as and when needed. So, in terms of the community land, there, as the councillor has suggested, there would be the possibility of that land having direct access onto Wick Hill, separately almost to the relief road coming forward. I mean, the ideas have been suggested that that access could form part of the relief road subsequently, but they're all sort of details that, as Mr. Lee suggested, that would come through as part of any reserve matters or detailed application for development of community land, and at that point, the progress on delivering the relief road would be assessed as part of that application. So there are other options available, and the response back from the county council, the most recent one, basically says that again, if the relief road isn't in place when access to the community land is needed, then other options can be looked at, and that is one option that could be looked at that time, and assessed in the normal way. I don't think I've got anything else to say at the moment, but if that hasn't answered any other questions, then let me know and I'll come back again. Thank you.
Anything you want to come back on there, Councillor Swain?
Just to question, if the access were put in with only the community area in view and not continuation of the relief road, construction of the rest of the relief road, do you foresee the junction being similar as if it was for a relief road, or could it be much simpler?
That might be a question for Mr. Lee.
Yeah, through you, Chairman. I think that's a matter for outside of this application. This is only the outline, and this isn't for consideration at this time. So we can't really give you an answer, unfortunately, Councillor Swain.
No, it's to take up with the County Council.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, I've got notes, as other councillors have, about the relief road, but I think a lot has been said about that this afternoon, and I am aware of time, Chairman. Thank you. But I would just like to ask either Ms Matthews or Mr Lee. The developer states that all of the 320 homes can be accessed off the so-called Linden roundabout, and the ECC Highways has indicated acceptance of this, page 77, 5.10.7, if anyone wants to check that. Does either Ms Matthews or Mr Lee agree that this is satisfactory, and that emergency vehicles would have access to all of the residents using this road, or indeed obviously the road off Wick Hill? I'm just checking that, please.
Through you, Chairman, I'm aware that the applicant has stated that, obviously, to a certain extent, that goes in conflict with, off the cuff. Ms Matthews can correct me if I'm wrong, with what the evidence we have at the time, but that also doesn't take into account the community land, and that's why obviously there is that condition in relation to phasing, and officers will look at it in its totality rather than ensuring that one type of the development or anything is prioritised over the other. But that's the reason for the phasing condition, is in relation to that. But we will have that definitive, but at the time we haven't got that confirmed one way or the other. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that concise question and answer. Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, folks. I would just like to make a short, more of a statement than a question. I just would like it noted for and on the record that the common sense for this would be that there's going to be, with the housing that's been pushed onto Heybridge, there's going to be 1,600 new dwellings. What with the bumfluffery that's going on at the A12 as well, if Bradwell is approved and we have all that traffic going through, will this application actually become known as the biggest free car park Malden District Council has ever approved? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Tara, do we have any other people wishing to speak, please? Oh, Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, Chairman, Councillor Stamp and Councillor Edwards.
Sorry, Councillor.
Councillor Stamp and Councillor Edwards.
Okay, Councillor Stamp first, because I think you haven't spoken yet, Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, I'll give way to Councillor Edwards because my bit needs to come at the end. So I'll give way to Councillor Edwards if that's all right with you, Chair.
Well, yes, it's a second bite of the cherry, but I will accept this. Go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. It's really just to clarify my first question. I asked that the extra monies coming to pay for the road was indicated that it would come from the North Heybridge Garden suburb. What I meant was, although I know that it's Essex County Council are doing the road, it was the shortfall I was actually referring to, and where was that money coming from? Thank you. Just to clarify that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, the shortfall on the Section 106 money.
Through you, Chairman, I think it's important to obviously note that at the moment there is no confirmation there is a shortfall. I know people have been stating that I think it's 5 million I've heard, as the Essex County Council have confirmed they haven't done any real work on it to formally have any exact figure. And I think the shortfall in the LDP potential, a worst case scenario, is much smaller than 5 million. And it's a pragmatic figure that the council took as a likely cost that should be more than enough to cover the relief road. And you know, that's why the inspector accepted it. If it was thought to be a figure quite substantially short, I don't think any inspector would have accepted that as part of the LDP, because it would have meant that through the phasing, the housing wouldn't have come, then we wouldn't have had our 5-year land supply, etc. So it would have fundamentally floored it. Where does that funding come from if there is a shortfall? That's an interesting question. There's many options. Essex, in theory, could look to meet the shortfall if they considered there's a benefit. There are different options in relation to looking at getting funding for highways on its own. If it was stopping the housing coming through, there's ways of looking to get funding for infrastructure to deliver housing projects that have stalled. To be honest, you know, Councillor, there's more options in theory to look at it than I can go through in, you know, this afternoon. But yeah, there are things out there.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor Stamp, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. Did Councillor Bamford put a proposal on the table? I think she did, and explained quite clearly that it has been here before. If Councillor Bamford has put it on the table to agree the officer's recommendation, can we actually move towards that, Chairman? And can we actually ask Mr. Lee to put the robust conditions in that he advocated for and said he would on the road? That's my proposal, or my seconding to Councillor Bamford if she proposed the recommendation, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bamford, did you want to just go over your proposal?
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, I did make a proposal, but I wanted the reassurance from the officers that they would ensure the conditions were robust, the phasing plan was robust, and if they can give us those assurances, then I propose that we agree the recommendation. And I think Maddie Thompson actually seconded my proposal.
Yes, I think that's right. Okay. Yes, thank you, Councillor Thompson. So following consideration of that legal advice given in agenda item 7, and this motion has been put forward and seconded, I will now put it to the vote. So Tara, can you please...
Chairman, can we have the assurances from the officers that these robust conditions are going to be implemented, please, before we take the vote?
Certainly. Sorry, I thought they had. Mr. Lee, could you give those assurances?
Through you, Chairman. Condition 8, as discussed earlier, deals with the phasing plan and reserved applications. If members are minded to, they can grant plan permission subject to that condition being agreed by officers through consultation with the chair, just to make sure that if there is any ways or necessity to make it any more robust. But some of the other points are actually, that is what would be agreed through that condition in a latter date. So there is no guarantee of this now through a condition. But what I can assure you is that officers will deal with it all professionally and ensure that we mitigate the harm as always. Thank you, Chairman.
Does that, are you satisfied with that, Councillor Bamford?
So, thank you, Chair. So what the officer was saying is that a particular condition could be improved in liaison with yourself. And I'm happy with that.
Yeah, or at least it looked at being in. I wouldn't want to guarantee, say, that it can be, because I would consider our conditions generally are fairly robust and defendable, but I'm happy to review that one with agreement with the chairman, consultation with the chairman.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So you don't want another 2 then?
No, I'm
Okay, so the officer's recommendation is that we accept, that we approve this recommendation. So, Tara, could we have the vote alphabetically, please?
Yes, Chairman. Chairman, just also to point out, you made reference to the legal advice in agenda item 7. It was agenda item 5, just to avoid any confusion.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear. So, members, just as we've done before, I'm going to call the names out alphabetically. If you could indicate if you're for, against, or abstaining, please. So, starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
Well, I am for, Tara, provided that condition is looked at, because that's not part of the recommendation.
So, Chairman, is the recommendation being amended to therefore include that the condition be looked at?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. So we're okay.
So I'm voting for on that basis.
Okay. Well, I think that will have to be the motion, won't it, Sarah?
Yes, Chairman, it would need to be the motion. Yeah.
Okay. So carry on.
So Councillor Bassinger, please.
For.
Councillor Miss Beale. I don't think she's in attendance. Councillor Bell.
Sarah. With the recommendation for.
Thank you.
Councillor Boyce.
For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Fleming.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hurd.
I will abstain.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hull.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Councillor Mays.
Against.
Councillor Morris.
Against.
Councillor Nunn.
For.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Siddle.
For.
Councillor Skeens.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Sorry, Sarah, for.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stilts.
Against.
Councillor Swain.
For.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
Thank you. Chairman, the result of that vote is 14 for, 4 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you, members, for coming to that decision. We'll now move on to agenda item 9, which is the land east of Bradwell Power Station, Downhall Beach, Bradwell-on-Sea. This is found on pages 195 to 250. Please note that a member's update in relation to this application has also been circulated prior to the meeting, and I will now call on the officer to present this item, which is Ms. Hannah. Please present the report. Thank you, Devon.
Thank you, Chairman. So this presentation is to provide a brief summary of the proposal and to remind members and also the public of the content within the presentation and the officer's report that was presented at the July District Planning Committee. So I'll try and keep it brief. This is a full application which seeks planning permission to carry out ground and load test investigations and associated works. This includes the creation of 2 site compound areas and associated parking areas. The works are temporary in nature and are to help inform the design and layout of any new nuclear power station that may be proposed at the site, and to also build on previous preliminary investigations which were approved and undertaken in accordance with the 2017 permission. Just to note, as I did previously, that the application is not for the erection of a new nuclear power station. Here we have the location plan. The site layout plan, you can see the compound areas are highlighted in pink. So this is where the load test investigation works will take place, and the smaller compound area. So this is the, this plan shows the access routes. So we've got the primary access routes within the thinner dotted line, and then the secondary access routes sort of out within the wider part of the site. The site also shows the indicative siting and the ground investigation works, which will be in the form of boreholes and trial pits. This is the ground investigation compound layout and the load test investigation compound. This shows the areas for excavation, which will be in the middle, and the areas where the bunds will be located. There's also an attenuation pond and welfare facilities, which are located to the south. This plan just shows the earthworks in greater detail. The proposed sections of the showing the proposed load test works, and sections showing the heights of the embankments. Photos of the surrounding area and the access to the site. Here we have some more photos. Photos within the site and showing the control tower. And then some more photos taken from within the site. So since the meeting in July, further objecting comments have been received from Essex Wildlife Trust, which were dated the 12th of August 2020, and we've had some public letters of objection. They're not considered to raise any new material considerations, and likewise the concerns relating to ecology, contamination, noise pollution. They raise concerns relating to ecology, contamination, noise pollution, and the necessity to reconsider the application. But these are, as I say, not considered to raise material considerations. Therefore, as previously reported, overall it's considered that subject to mitigation measures that have been proposed, and given that the site will be returned to its pre-development condition, the development would not have a detrimental impact on the character and landscape of the area, the nearby nature or heritage designations, archaeological features, ecological receptors, or the environment as a whole. They're also not considered to be detrimental impacts on the highway network. So subject to conditions, including those safeguarding the implementation of mitigation measures regarding noise, disturbance, contamination, the protection of any archaeological remains and protected species and sites, the development is considered acceptable and is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Devon. Members have received legal advice on this. Tara, who do we have who wishes to speak, please?
Chairman, I've got Councillor Bell, Councillor Skeens, Councillor Lagan, Councillor Nunn and Councillor Bamford. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we'll go Councillor Bell first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd just like to go back to, as I mentioned previously, the current or the upcoming judicial review in relation to Sizewell C and Mrs. Justice Andrews' comments when allowing the judicial review. It is arguable that there were deficiencies within the environmental impact assessment relied upon by the council in making their planning decision. Now, members, I feel we're at severe risk of this. We've had discussion, we've talked about the response from the Statutory Consultancy, Natural England, and also other responses from interested and very, very relevant organisations and bodies. I feel we're in the same position as Sizewell C here, and that if we agree to this, we lay ourselves wide open to judicial review. Secondly, I want to talk about small children, members. St Sed's Primary School, as we know, is only, I believe 100 yards away from the site of one of these planned boreholes. Young ears are sensitive, and these small children will be subjected to noise levels of 78 decibels. Now, I can circulate information from the World Health Organization, members, which states that the potential effects of this could include hearing loss, both temporary and permanent, impaired cognitive function and increased stress levels. And alongside that, the capacity to learn, well, there's that degree of noise going on is. Now, members, I'm a social worker. In my world, this is demonstrable, significant harm. It may not be in planning terms, but it certainly is in my world. And we would also lay ourselves open to parents bringing legal action against the council for any damage that their children may have had to their hearing. Just finally, briefly, the government nominated site boundary is 298 hectares, and this application covers 460 hectares. It therefore actually contravenes government national planning policy and falls outside the planning system. And that hasn't been raised by anyone up till this point. That's it from me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Next on the list, I've got Councillor Skeens. Could I just ask Councillor Swain, could you switch your camera off, please? Thank you. Councillor Skeens.
Hi, yes. Time. We haven't really had enough time. This has come upon us so quickly. We have a selection of environmental reports, some of which contradict each other. We need more robust reports into the impact of this. And now I don't know how we get time. I understand that it's a position of some officers that we've got what we've got and we've got to go with what we've got. I feel we need better investigations into the environmental impact in this. I'm not sure how we achieve that, but I don't like being over a barrel of time for something that isn't going to be built for so long. It seems unfair, and I'm finding it very difficult to find a way to vote in favour of such a massive intervention in our environment, and I think we somehow or other we need more time, or we need to face the possibility of appeal, which is possible, and make sure we are thoroughly prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan, do you have a question?
I have a question and some points, Chair, please.
Okay.
And I'd like to exercise my right to speak within the 3 minutes, which I'll try and keep to, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I was also perplexed, Chair, why this is on the agenda when members have already rejected it. This application, members, states in the proposal that the application to carry out ground investigations, load tests and associated works in conjunction with a new nuclear power station at Bradwell, etc., I'll edit it for time. Therefore, it's critical for us in understanding that this application is intrinsically linked to the proposed new power station, although it is an application in its own right here. And power station where to note that the generic design assessment, so the actual assessment of the reactors and the suitability, hasn't even been passed and approved by the Office of Nuclear Regulation. So we wouldn't be classed unreasonable, members, if we refuse this application, because at the moment we're considering building a swimming pool for the Loch Ness Monster, which we don't even know if it exists and we don't even know the size of it. So then we look at the recommendations within the paper that the officers have kindly put together. And I look at proposal number 1. We even talk about approving the application. Well, the application itself is against the local and national policies, which is obviously planning is led by the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, which provides background against the application for planning permissions. The LDP, our own Malden District Council LDP, states in 20 words on page 57 that it supports in principle new nuclear power station at Bradwell. Well, if you don't support the principle, doesn't mean that it actually exists. We've already ascertained that we don't support the principle or the application. So in essence, if we carry on with this, given this recommended to proceed goes against the LDP, the NPPF sections 170, which is conserving and enhancing the natural environment, and I quote, Chair and members, planning policies and decisions should contribute to and enhance the nature of local environment by point A, protecting and enhancing valued landscapes, sites of biodiversity or geological value in soils in a manner commensurate with their statutory status or identified quality in the development plan. Nothing there, we only had a principle. B, recognising the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside and the wider benefits from natural capital and ecosystem services, including economic and other benefits for more versatile agricultural land. C, maintaining, this is important, maintaining the character of undeveloped coast while improving public access. So this is all what the policy says, and preventing a new and existing development from contributing to or being put at unacceptable risk or being adversely affected by levels of soil, air, water or noise pollution, etc., etc. So I believe the first recommendation that was put in there goes against section 170 of the NPF, and therefore it can't be deemed as unreasonable, which would be a case if we went to appeal, that we have to argue whether that was unreasonable in regard to case law, which we've talked about in previous occasions, which really, from a procedural perspective, we've not broken any procedures because we've followed our procedure. So recommendations 2 and 3, and I take all members would have had the recommendations in front of them, talks to the studies and reports that don't supply enough detail, which other members have said, with regard to environmental heritage harm that could occur, and it could occur, well, it's going to occur. Even the advice of the RSPB was ignored. The number of boreholes, for instance, we've mentioned boreholes, and I've been in borehole drilling, so I know this.
Councillor Lagan, I have to go over your time. If you could finish up.
I'm going as fast as I can. This is a very, very important thing for.
You can have my 3 minutes. You can have my 3 minutes too.
I don't need all of that. I just want to get these points because these are important. These are points as well. So the number of boreholes exceeds 230, which was more than twice the number of the 2017 application. A borehole will cause harm for both ecology, heritage damage and noise pollution. So there are material considerations in planning law, as I've been widely led to understand. We have to consider those. Also, members, a temporary 200 metres by 100 metre open cut excavation with further 4 metre and 7 metre excavations at the bottom of the pit can't be classed as minor excavations, and that will create harm and is a material consideration. Noise, a disturbance, dust disturbance, and you allow that to sit in place for 3 years. I think that temporary, calling that temporary is naive. Recommendation number 5 is actually contradictory. It allows the compounds, the grounds to be levelled if after 5 years permission is not granted for a new power station, as in recommended 4. But it says the testing has to cease after 3 years. So we just leave the compound there, do we? If we haven't done anything. So that's harm, because it certainly doesn't fit in with the beautiful peninsula of Bradwell. Recommendation 7 talks about temporary structures in the site compound not exceeding 10 metres. Think about how high 10 metres is, that's 30 foot. And what that does, it says to meet our policies D1 and H4. Policy D1 states all developments must respect and enhance the character and local context and make a positive contribution. And B, it doesn't. And H4, where it states the proposal will not involve the loss of important landscape heritage features, ecology interests. The proposal does therefore contradict itself against our own policies. Nearly done, Chair, thank you. Recommendation number 9, it talks about the times of development. So it said the development should not commence between 7 and 2000 hours, Monday to Fridays. That's a long old working day. That's again outside our own policies. The noise levels and disturbance resulting from such hours of operation are going to be harmful, and I concur with Councillor Bell. That doesn't include, Chair, members' mobilisation and disturbance caused by people getting down there, and also the negativity on ecology. Recommendation 12 and 13, drilling and aquifer protection in this clause, also takes that if further contaminated land is identified, the timescales for the cessation and remedial works should take place. That could take years.
Right, Councillor Lagan, I have to be generous. I've given you over double the amount of time here.
Thank you. There's 3 members who take the time, Chair. Recommendation 16, development according with mitigation included in the landscape and the visual report to protect the character and appearance of the landscape in accordance with our own policies, Chair members. S8 and D1. S8 states the countryside will be protected for its landscape, natural resources and ecological value, and its intrinsic character and beauty. Boreholes and open cut excavations, Chair, go against that, and section 170 of the NPF. Section 17 by its own part again says the ecology is there. It doesn't even enter into that. And recommendation 19 talks about noise pollution and mitigation. Noise pollution is a material consideration that's going to be in excess of what the recommended exposure levels are.
I'm going to have to move on now, Councillor Lagan.
Yep,
You've had
don't worry, I've got 15 pages here I've dropped out, Chair.
I'm sorry.
Well, he's using my 3 minutes.
I'd like to go to Councillor Nunn, please. I'm sorry, Councillor Lagan.
Let him speak.
This is so important.
I've been generous. I've been given 7 minutes, and the Constitution allows 3. I will. Thank you. Councillor Nunn. Councillor Nunn, please. I will go to Councillor Bamford then, please.
I
recommend refusal. That's my only last matter, Chair. And thank you for cutting me short when we obviously have this massive decision to make. I find that very, very, very helpful.
Well, I think I've been very generous, Councillor Lagan, with 7 minutes.
I will second his
Well
recommendation.
said, Councillor Lagan.
Thank you. Councillor Bamford, did you
There's a
have
recommendation on the table.
Councillor Bamford.
Chair, I think Councillor Nunn was trying to speak.
Ah.
He's muted.
Okay, Councillor Nunn, can I go back to you? Thank you.
Unmute yourself, Councillor Nunn.
You're still muted, Councillor Nunn.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Lagan, for your eloquent presentation. I want to concentrate entirely on the groundworks here, Chair, the application before us, not comment on the power station per se. I'll reserve those thoughts for later. I want to talk about the impact on the built heritage, and I've been reminded on a number of occasions that I must base my comments on evidence. So here you are then. I'm basing the evidence on BRB's own materials. Their own materials, in terms of built heritage, talk about keeping the memorial. As important as the memorial is, it only dates from the 12th of July 1987. However, the BRB paper is worryingly silent on the actual real remains of the aerodrome. They make no mention of the control tower or watch office. They make no mention of the station headquarters, no mention of the Bellman and Blister hangars, and no mention of the runway remains and the perimeter track. All of those date from 1941. They are all unique to our district. They're all of national importance in the context of World War II night fighter operations. We're told that these items, well, we've got no comment from BRB about these items, although officers are saying to me there's no indication that these will be removed. But my goodness, with the amount of work that's planned there will be at the very least damage, and there will be at the very least visual disruption because these things will be hidden behind earthworks. I've also heard that anything can be returned and replaced and rebuilt. That surely is impossible. I'm not convinced by that. We're talking about reinforced concrete with some of these structures. So this is nothing short, in my mind, Chairman, of heritage vandalism. And wouldn't it be tragic if after all of this, this vandalism takes place, but then the power station itself doesn't go ahead, and yet we end up with irreparable damage done to the legacy of a very important historic site. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Nunn. Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Chair. This has been a long afternoon.
Indeed.
And this is a very important planning application. And for the benefit of any residents that are listening, I just want to explain how difficult this is for us as councillors in making this decision. We know the government have allocated the site for a new power plant. We know that in the past, this council has supported nuclear, and we have our officers recommending approval. So we're reliant on our expert planners and officers to advise us on these things. We have statutory consultees that are all in favour of this application. That's archaeological, ecological, heritage assets. They're all in favour. Our conservation officer hasn't raised any objections. And although there's a raft of public opinion against this, we've been told that this is not per se a reason to object. So we are really, as a council, between a rock and a hard place here, because unless we can come up with some expert, that was our legal advice, we have to have substantial expert advice that would support objections to this planning application, and we don't have those. So we are really in a problem here with this application. I heard what Councillor Lagan has said, and he has put forward an objection, but we need to know exactly the reasons, because it was a long speech and it has been seconded, but I'm sure that I and other members have no idea what those objections are. So we need to know if there's a proposal on the table. So I'm very reluctant to propose anything here, although, you know, we have got our officers who are our experts recommending approval. So that's what I want to say, Chairman, and I would like a detailed, clear explanation from Councillor Lagan as to exactly what he is putting forward as the points for refusal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will come back to that, but I want to hear from people who haven't spoken yet. Councillor Shaughnessy. Councillor Shaughnessy.
There we are. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree with Councillor Bell about the school. And as a retired teacher, I would not want to teach in those that sort of situation. I agree with everything she said there. I'd also like to mention the care home. I believe it's called the Downhall Care Home. The devastating effect it will have on the residents there. And of course, all the residents of Bradwell, you know, it goes without saying. The 460 hectares that now has been mentioned. I mean, do these extra hectares fall outside the planning system? I'd like to know that, the same as Councillor Bell. I don't know why the RSPCA cannot be consulted again. And while we're on consultation, all the parish councils, it is years since that consultation was held, but it still comes up in the agenda. Why can that not be revisited and all the parish councils be asked their opinion now? And just to specifics, Councillor Nunn mentioned the effects of the historic and architectural artefacts that are there being disturbed by all this drilling, etc. There are some protected species in the area, as well as all the other species that are there, that will be affected by all this drilling, the noise, and as I said in closed session, that with reference to these in particular protected species, but all species, particularly the ground and water species, that sound travels fastest through soil, then it gets to the water and it's a little slower, then it gets to the air and it's a little slower still. So there is no protection for these species at all with this drilling. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I know we've had a proposal that's seconded, but I don't want to stifle debate. I do apologise. I missed out Councillor Morris. I know you wanted to make a point. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to come back to something Councillor Bamford was saying about we must listen to our officers. I think more importantly, we need to listen to our residents. I believe from the correspondence I've received that our residents demand that we fight this proposal. I personally won't be blackmailed, bribed or bullied into not representing my residents. I'd ask Councillor Bamford how she would feel if she would feel the same way if this monstrosity was going up in Tollesbury. I'm also quite disappointed that Councillor Langan was closed down. I believe he has some very good points that need to be listened to, and I would propose that he is given enough time to adequately put his points across. I believe I've got support in the chamber, and I believe that that Councillor Langan should be referred back to finish his original points.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Helm, have you got your camera on to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will put you on the list, and I will also put Councillor Swain. I just need to hear people who haven't spoken before. Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to say, I mean, I've read all the documents, and I think it's important to take on board. Of course, from a human nature point of view, we're taking on board what the residents are saying, but from a planning point of view, we have to understand that that is what we're being asked to determine on planning. That said, I have to say I'm very disappointed that we don't seem to have made much inquiry ourselves at all into any expert reports. We're relying entirely on, it seems, reports which have been produced, sort of statutory reports on firms or organisations recommended by the government. I mean, there are lots of other organisations regarding, ecology, landscape, heritage, ecology. There are lots of other organisations that I'm sure, for not exorbitant cost at all, would be able to produce robust and detailed statements. And if they can't, and they're not able to do that, then I think councillors are faced with a more sort of balanced decision. But it seems to me at the moment that that hasn't really been pursued at all. And so what we're being presented with is to make a decision which is based on skewed information to that degree. That's not the officer's fault, but I do think having a longer period of time to get those appropriate reports is very important, because this is something which is very large and something which is going to be around for a very long time, and it's going to affect an awful lot of people. So I really find it quite puzzling and somewhat bizarre that we can't put the time in to at least attempt to get expert reports. And if they're not forthcoming or they come up with the wrong conclusions, at least councillors then and residents would be able to see a balanced view. But at the moment, I feel very strongly that we're being given a few reports and we're being told that's it. Make your decision based on these. And I feel very uncomfortable about that. Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you very much. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. Just getting my...
Sorry, before you start, Councillor Siddle, Councillor Morris has raised a point of order. What point of order would that be, please, Councillor Morris?
I believe we've not followed procedure by asking the ward member for their opinions first. Can we not get the ward member for Bradwell's opinion for this, please?
I don't think he's present at this meeting.
Oh, so sorry, the councillor that is in charge of that ward, Councillor Dewick, isn't actually in the meeting. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor, can I go back to Councillor Siddle, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I think that all the points that people have made so far are extremely valid, and on the noise alone and the effect that would have on the community, it's above the limits that's declared. So that alone surely should be a reason for refusal. There must be consultants that we can talk to about that. So I am unaware of what the timescales are in terms of this application and how soon it's got to be approved. So perhaps we could have a look at a proposal that we delay making a decision on this until the expert advice can be sought, and whether that is something that we can do, that we don't make the decision, and that it can be delayed for a bit longer until we get more expert advice that we can make a qualified decision on.
I would have to ask. Thank you for that. I'll ask Mr. Quelch. Is this a matter that can be deferred, or do we have to decide today, please?
You can defer a planning application, of course you can, if you want more information. The problem is that my understanding is that this application has already had an extension agreed by the applicant. I believe it may well be the end of August or the beginning of September.
It's today, Simon.
It is today. In
That's
fact,
why the committee's on today.
So
It's today.
So yeah, okay, so thank you for that. So the situation is legally members should make their decision today.
Right.
If members don't, then the applicant can make an appeal to the planning inspectorate for non-determination. That's a matter for them.
Right.
They may accept the reasons for the council, that the council want to get more information. I think members would need to actually define what that information is specifically they want, so officers go away and get exactly what's required. So the answer is it needs to be decided today legally, and it would depend on the applicant's response to that about an appeal.
All right, thank you very much. Was that your only other point, Councillor Siddle?
Yes, it was. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Helm. Councillor Helm, please be brief as well, if you may. Thank you. Councillor Helm. You're still muted, I think.
I'm on now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you're now. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry about the delay. Highways has said the road network's all right, but I maintain it isn't. Latchington would be gridlocked, and the pollution levels will be way above the recommended levels. Going further along through Steeple, we've got grade listed buildings there that are being destroyed now, let alone in future. Talking about the noise level, a typical lawnmower is 100 dB. So that could be working next to the school and 78 decibels would be quite quiet. And now I would like to refer you to the wind farm that was passed by the inspectorate, even though the people of the district didn't want it. So it's obvious what's going to happen in the end. It's going to be forced through by somebody else, and we won't have enough say in it. And that's all I have to say. I won't need the 12 minutes that a fellow member had. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go now to Councillor Swain. I think he's, please, if you could be brief, please, Councillor Swain.
I'm not sure. I'll try and be succinct. It would be ironic if actually the ground investigation showed the place was unsuitable, but a couple of things I want to clarify. This is a 2.2 metre fence all round the site, as I understand it. Is it an effective sound barrier? Can it be ensured that it's an effective sound barrier? The reason for the site area, I mean, there may be various reasons for that. One is for practical purposes at this stage, but in the longer run, the actual area encircling the plant may be smaller. The other thing is the recommendations we have, if they're passed, I assume they would become conditions. That's one for Mr. Lee. I think Council's opinion is understandable because the reasons we gave, or that Mr. Lee gave, were rather weak, and also the documentation is sprayed around with saying provided mitigation measures are included, which is a bit of a catch-all. Now, I don't accept some of these arguments about the 2025 deadline and the boundary definition. I don't think they really matter. I think we've got two possible approaches. One is to refuse it because of lack of information, and the other is to impose additional conditions or tighter conditions. On the first, one could list a few things where we could want further information, such as radiological contamination, the impact of vibration on wildlife and people, not just noise, a bit more certainty about dealing with drilling fluids, and the justification for so many boreholes and this very large pit. That's one approach, which Mr. Lee may think still is too weak. The alternative is to look at the recommendations and other possible recommendations or conditions. One would be to reduce the period in recommendation 3 from 5 years to 3, to change the working hours in recommendation 9 from 8 till 5, and I can't see any reason for any noisy late working. Condition 10, we could require 55 decibels at all times as a maximum to the outside world. And we could put in additional conditions that there must be no damage to heritage assets. And a second one, perhaps we could reduce the size of the pit. It seems to me very large for the object of the exercise. And one might question also the numbers of boreholes, but whether we can actually, should we say, put in a condition of a limited number with them to come back for more if they needed them, or bigger pit if they needed it, may be an option. The last point is on page 219, 5.6.9, this pension's working in evenings. I can't see that we should have any noisy operations in the evening. The last thing is the timing of this. They were due to start in June, July and finish in November. I wonder if because of environmental, ecological concerns, they have to move all of this activity into next year.
Right, thank you. Before I ask for any other speakers, is there anything you need to come back on, Mr. Lee, at all? I know you've had a lot of information there.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Ms. Hearn probably would come back on a lot of it at first as the case officer, because a lot of it's quite specific to that, and then I'll come in on any points that either think might need additionality or outside the planning application.
All right, I'll get some more views. Yeah, okay. Tara, could I have the next speaker, please?
The next person I've got is Councillor Stamp, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is really just a clarification. By you not allowing Councillor Langham to finish, and I appreciate he went above his time, and thank you for doing that, but he's following the rest of his speech may have contained a valid reason for refusal. Now, if it did, and you didn't allow it to be debated, that couldn't be noted onto the if this application was refused, Chairman. So I just would like to say a word of caution. I understand he's spoken longer than he should do, but he's very, very informed on this. And I think it's really important that he is allowed to speak, and he can have my 3 minutes, Chairman. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Well, thank you for that. I think he actually spoke for over 7 minutes, and I think I was very generous on that. Can I just go back, Councillor Lagan? Is there much more to come?
Not much more, Chair. And first of all, thank you, Councillor Stamp, for your generosity, and other members in your generosity of listening. No, there's just a couple of points, because I was getting to the actual point that I was going to mention, Chair. Which it was everything that I spoke to was about the recommendations. It wasn't about the nuclear power station itself. So it's actually about advice to the report. So there's some confusion there. But the proposal that I put, Chair, that we refuse based on the current two reasons for refusal, which are just synoptically were noise and disturbance, ecological matters, and loss of historical environment. And based on the legal advice that we took earlier on, let's actually seek and appoint technical experts in these areas, and actually make sure that we have got every single basis covered, and not be scared to do so. That was all I was going to say, Chair.
Okay.
That's my recommendation in this still stays.
Thank you very much. So just before I go to the vote, because I think first of all, Mr. Lee, we would need to either vote on the officer's recommendation. And then, if not, go on to Councillor Lagan's recommendation. Is that correct?
Chairman, you can't because you didn't move the motion first. You've already got a motion on the table. You have to take the motion.
I'm just asking Mr. Lee, sorry.
Through Chair, I'm not 100% sure. It's not my skill set.
It's not his area.
Yeah, I think Mr. Quelch might be better answering that one.
Thank you, Mr. Quelch. Thank you, Mr. Quelch.
Sorry, Chairman, a bit slow. I'm muting myself. Chairman, the first motion that has been seconded on the table is what you must deal with first of all.
Yes.
That can be amended, but it must be disposed of first of all. So the debate now is on the motion that's been put forward that has been seconded. Now, has there been a motion that has been seconded?
Yeah, I believe that's Councillor Lagan's motion that we refuse this, and that was seconded.
Right, in which case then that's the motion on the table, and you must deal with the members must deal with that motion first of all.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Before you come back, Councillor Swain, I just need to go to Mr. Lee because did you want to finish on something, Mr. Lee, before we take the vote? There's been several points asked.
Yeah, I think, as I said, let the case officer, Ms. Herner, go through the points, and I'll add any supplementary or support required latterly.
Okay, Devon. So if I could just ask you to raise any points that you may have noted there.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll try and keep the points brief because I think we did address a lot of them last time. Just in relation to the fact, I think Councillor Lagan went through a lot of the LDP policies. So the starting point for decision making is the council's adopted local plan, and as we've got an adopted one, that is some material weight in determining the application. Obviously, we do consider the MPPF as well, but the LDP is our starting point. With applications like this, there's always going to be elements of the proposal that don't necessarily adhere to every aspect of the local plan, but it is a balancing exercise, and given that the works are temporary and a lot of the harm mentioned can be mitigated through the proposed conditions, as officers we don't consider that development is wholly contrary to the local plan. In relation to noise in particular, and the school and care home have been raised by a number of members, there are actual residential properties that are located closer to the works than both the school and the care home. And given that the noise assessment hasn't found that the development would be demonstrably harmful to those residents, it isn't considered that it'd be reasonable to reach a different approach in relation to the school and care home. Just also to note that the conditions proposed in relation to noise are similar to what we as a council approved under the 2017 permission. And there's not anything really before us that would suggest that we should adopt a different approach to what we did when granting that planning permission. There was a lot of matters raised in relation to contamination, dust, ecology, which I think the conditions that we've proposed would be sufficient to mitigate. In terms of ecology specifically, though, the works are terrestrial, and I've been made aware of guidance from our ecological consultant that highlights that if works are terrestrial, then it's unlikely to have an impact on particular protected marine species. And also there has been back and forth with Natural England, and the applicant requested extra information, so it's not that they've just accepted the reports from the applicant straight off. They have worked with them to ensure that the development will, any harm will be mitigated as part of the development. Hours of operation, we don't have any specific local plan policies in place for hours of operation. Again, consulting environmental health and other relevant consultees, and the fact that not all the works will be taking place at one time, it's not considered that again, there wouldn't be any harm resulting as such from any work taking place in unsociable hours. And then I think one of the last points I picked up on was heritage. As I've previously raised, the harm to heritage assets is considered to be visual and not physical. So it would be wholly reversible once the works are removed, which is secured via a condition. I think, and just to clarify on one of Councillor Swain's points, the 2.2 metre high fencing is proposed around the compound areas, and it's just security fencing that wouldn't be around the whole site. There's noise barriers proposed around the boreholes, which will only be in place while each borehole being worked on, but they're not as excessive as the extent as it's not that 2.2 metre high fence would be around the entire 460 hectare site. And drilling fluids from the boreholes as well would be taken away from the land and wouldn't be discharged into any nearby water courses, which I think was another point raised. I think that covers most of the points, unless Matt has anything to add or any other members.
Yes,
Thank you.
sorry, I know there was a lot there. Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, did you want to finish up on that?
Amen. I think Ms. Hearn has covered most of them. The only thing I'd like to have in relation to kind of Councillor Swain's points about some alterations to the conditions and things. You know, the application is what it is, and to say things like reducing the number of boreholes they can do or the depth or anything like that wouldn't be appropriate. You know, the application is before us at this time. Just in relation to Councillor Lagman's points where he was highlighting things that are material consideration, you know, none of the things he highlighted, to be honest, I would say aren't a material consideration, but just because they're a material consideration doesn't mean automatically that's a reason for refusal. There still needs to be able to demonstrate harm. But I think otherwise Ms. Hearn covered all the points excellently. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay, I intend to take this to a vote in that case. Ms. Bird, are you ready to take a vote on the recommendation? Which could you just remind us of the recommendation?
Yeah, Chairman, I would just wondered if Councillor Lagan read it out again. I've got most of it, but not all of it. I just want to be clear exactly on what he's saying, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Recommend refusal on the ground noise and disturbance on ecology matters. Basically, the first two that we had on the previous application. The historical environment relating to archaeology and the heritage assets. And this council approves the appointment or the officers to seek the appointment of technical experts to assist us in refusal of this application based on harm.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else? Is there any other reasons for refusal, Chairman? I think other members had other reasons, didn't they, as well, Chairman?
Okay. Any other members who wish to contribute to this recommendation?
I don't know. I don't know if risk of judicial review is a reason. It probably isn't. But I still think the differing size is a material consideration. The fact that it may actually fall outside current planning law. I mean, the current planning system. I think that's a really relevant issue, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Being lynched by residents.
Before I come to you, Councillor Mays, Mr. Lee, could you just answer the question on the
Through you, Chairman, we're determining the planning application that's in front of us. It's important to understand that this application is for works. It's not for the new nuclear power station. It's for ground investigation works, which the ground around the nuclear power station will still need to be assessed that it can take impact. And it's important to understand that the NPS does not explicitly state it will only be this size and no more. So I think personally and professionally, my advice would be not to look at that as reason for refusal, because there is nothing within this application that's explicitly saying that this nuclear power station will be based A, B or C. That is looking at something I don't think is a consideration for this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mays, you've got a final point?
Yeah, I was going to actually come back on that one about the size of the site. The application that is on the table, irrespective of the power station, is 460 hectares, and that is outside the national policy, which is 298. So I am confused. I was confused when I asked the question initially. Councillor Bell has brought this one up as well. Why are we going against national policy on this application, not any other application, on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Lee.
This application is for groundworks. This application isn't for a new nuclear power station. They could, if they owned more land, they could have edged the area red larger. There is nothing that says that any restrictions that will be put through other legislation are going to be impacted on this. This is just a plan application. They are looking at area around it. You know, they're looking at site quality. As I said, you know, understand, you know, if land to the side or somewhere else would be problematic, they would need to understand this. If this would be impact on from the construction of new nuclear power stations, this is, a want of a better phrase, a information finding exercise. So looking at it to say that an agreement for size here is flawed by this application being larger, which is a separate legislation and process, is not something we can defend at appeal, in my professional opinion, and would be a very dangerous way to look at it.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Lagan, as it is his recommendation. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Just very, very shortly, Chair and members, again, and I appreciate exactly what Mr. Lee says, because I do have an incredibly high regard for our planning officers. But the Nolan Committee with probity and planning, it says planning officers are there to advise. The recommendation that I've put forward is, look, we've got the recommendation that's there. You've given us some great advice. We don't feel that advice is enough, or, you know, so let's look at the real technical experts that are out there. And if we go to appeal, etc., that's it. But the motion's on the table to go out there, look at what reasons we can actually got it, and then look at the extra technical advice that's there. I think Councillor Jarvis actually said that, probably not in such a long way that I did earlier on.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. In that case, I'm going to move to the vote now. So Tara, could you take the vote, please?
Yes, Chairman. So this is a vote on refusal in accordance with the reasons as detailed by Councillor Lagan.
Yes.
Members, if when I call your name, if you could just indicate if you're for, against, or abstaining, please.
Chairman, can it be put on the screen? Can it be put on the screen?
Yes,
please.
Could we share that, please, Tara? Thank you.
Yeah, if you can give me a minute. Oh.
I do apologise, members, for the length of time this meeting has taken place, but we have covered two very, very important issues, and where I can, I've tried to give as much time as we can. But bearing in mind we've had legal advice, that's probably a cause. So here we have the reason for refusal.
That's roughly what I've written down from what Councillor Lagan said. So please, if it's incorrect, Councillor Lagan, please advise.
Chairman, can I ask Councillor Lagan to look at that little bit I've put in the chat bar to see if he agrees with that, or does he think it's covered in his reason for refusal, Chairman?
Can you remind us what it is, Councillor Stamp, please?
It's similar to what the officer says. It does have a detrimental impact on character and landscape and the environment.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor Stamp, that should go in. I think it's an excellent point.
Thank you, Councillor.
Are we able to insert that, Tara?
Yes, of course, Chairman. Where would you like me to insert that?
Well, I think after the word assets, I think probably.
Heritage assets, yeah.
Yeah.
The application has a detrimental impact
on character.
On what, sorry?
On character and landscape and environment.
Through Chairman, for clarity, for officers, I'm slightly confused. Are members basically reiterating the reasons for refusal that were drafted and included within the officer's report? Are they proposing different reasons for refusal? Because at the moment, I think that what's in front of me is slightly confusing.
I would, through the chair, I would say that we need to look more detailed at those reasons that we've actually got for the two previous reasons. and also add in the last two parts. So I think we need to extrapolate much more detail into exactly why we feel so strongly about noise.
So are we able? Okay, are we able to break those down into separate reasons? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. Yeah, because at the moment it says proposal reviews based on the current two reasons for refusal noise, but obviously this is the determination of the plan application, so the reasons for refusal need to be laid down clear and precise. And remembering that we need to get that decision notice out today as well, members. So.
Okay, so at the moment it's saying two reasons, and we're putting more of those.
Chairman, so, taking into account Councillor Lagan's or the wording of that, I would say the two reasons for refusal which we have would be the starting block. So could those not be put up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find them.
Okay.
Sorry.
Chairman, while this is going on, can I raise a point of clarification?
Please.
As I see it, we cannot refuse and also ask for technical advice. We either have the technical advice and refuse on that technical advice, or we don't. We can't refuse if we haven't got the technical advice. Is that correct, Mr. Quelch or Matt Lee?
Yes.
Through you, Chairman, I'm happy to pick that up. Councillor Bamford is correct in that. My assumption was that what Councillor Lagan was saying was that at appeal, officers would look to get additional resources in to defend the appeals, which is what we would always do anyway, to defend the council's position. But if I'm wrong, if Councillor Lagan wants to clarify, I'm happy for that. But yeah, if that is
okay, so it's not something that should go in as a reason for a refusal. This is more backing up the reason for refusal. Is that correct?
Chairman, it's not a reason for refusal that we would do that if it was refused. We would always look to get if we haven't got experts to get them.
Okay. Can we just have a look at the refusal again then, please? So we can't really refuse on seeking and appointing technical experts. That is what we would do if we were to refuse it.
Correct. Yeah.
So would it end on the word environment?
Through you, Chairman, I think what you need to look at is the two reasons for refusal that are below that as the basis for start. Because obviously we need to have what the wording is. And obviously the text that's above is just more of a references those. So this is the reason for refusal, obviously. So we need to have clarity on those points. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So we've got the noise and the ecology matters. Are members happy with 1 and 2 as they are?
With noise, could we include vibration? Because we're talking about noise, but actually it's the vibration element that is going to be very, very, very damaging.
Yeah. We need protected species on there as well.
Yes.
We need protected species on there as well.
Councillor Nunn.
That's in ecology, isn't it?
Thank you very much, Chair. Under item 1 there, it says about namely as a result of the proximity of the works to the blister hangers. I did mention not just the blister hangers, but the watch office, the station headquarters, the runways, perimeter tracks. And why are we saying non-designated? That's telling us down the road. You know, we just need to say namely as a result of the works to the World War II remains and the importance in the heritage context.
Here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Mr. Quelch, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was just thinking that obviously members, this motion is to refuse the application. The more reasons that members put in, the more expert evidence we have to get. So, for example, noise is a new one. Members can obviously add that reason if they want to. but it wasn't a part of the first reason for refusal. So if say, for example, noise is added, then we would need to not only get ecology experts, archaeological experts, conservation experts, we'd also have to get noise experts. So the more complex the reasons for refusal, the more experts the council will have to instruct. Now, if those are fundamental reasons, all those matters are, if members feel those are all fundamental reasons, or the proposal, Councillor Lagan is the proposer, Councillor Lagan feels those are all fundamental reasons, then so be it. I'm just simply making the point. It may be best for Councillor Lagan to choose the ones he thinks are the most objectionable.
Leave them as they are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nunn, finally.
If we need to get experts, so be it. And actually, I don't think we need archaeological experts for the reasons I stated earlier. What we need is an expert in relation to airfield heritage, and there are some around.
Okay, so can we move to a vote then with 1 and 2? Right, okay, Tara, could you take the
Sorry, Chair.
Chairman.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Nunn.
Is that being amended then?
It needs amending.
The bit about blister hangers and non-designated, we don't want non-designated. It needs to read. It needs to take that out and say that it, because of the World War II remains and their importance in relation to the local heritage.
Here.
We don't want just hangers.
Are we able to change that, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, we can change that, or as members agreed last time, the reasons were relating to noise, disturbance on ecology matters, etc. And then the exact wording was delegated to officers in consultation with the chairman. So I don't know if that's...
I think members are very clear on what they wish to say, so I think it's probably best we do that now, particularly taking into account that the decision notice needs to go out today.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Also, Chairman, I think you were going to add vibration as well.
Okay, if we can just have the recommendations up, please, and we'll go from there.
Right, Chairman. If you advise how you want it amended, I can amend it on the screen for you.
Right. So on the first one, so I can't quite see it. Can that be a little bit bigger? That's it, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Nunn, so is there anything you want to change in number 1?
Yes. So as a result of the proximity of the World War II aerodrome remains.
Yeah.
And we can put them in brackets if you want. Open brackets, Tara.
Oh, well,
what?
You don't need to go in the detail.
Really?
Well, we could do, but I mean, aerodrome.
No, you do. You absolutely do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
In brackets, watch office / control tower, comma, station headquarters building, comma, hangars, comma, runway remains.
Perfect.
And perimeter track. And then get and then get rid of that non-designated. So get rid of that non-designated bit and say which are an important aspect of our local heritage.
Okay.
I would also consider putting in of national importance.
And of national importance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and of national importance. Yeah, fine.
Okay, are we ready to vote on that now, members?
No, not quite, Chair.
Okay, yes, Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you. In 2, I think we should mention protected species. So impacts on important ecological, including ecological assets, including protected species.
Lovely.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Tara.
And also, Chairman, vibration.
Yes.
You and your vibration.
Noise, vibration, and disturbance.
Okay,
Yes,
I think
it's crucial to the seahorses, though, isn't it?
I think that we're there now.
Oh, just one thing we need to put in about the National Planning Policy Framework, section 170, Chair, if it's okay with you and members. I think where it says, so contrary to policies S1D1, we should add in there S8 and blah, 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 the National Policy Plan and the guidance contained within the National Policy. Actually, leave it at that. The guidance contained in the National Policy Framework, because that would cover section 170.
Okay.
Thank you.
So have I added S8 to number 2? Is that right, Chairman? Not number 1.
Number 2.
S8, yeah.
That one.
Yes. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lee, what is your position on this now? Are you happy with our rewritten?
Through you, Chairman, I think members know my professional advice on these matters.
All right.
It's within,
Okay.
as always, it's within your gift to determine the application as you see fit.
All right. Okay. So we've, I think we are probably there now. So Tara, if we could call the roll on these 2 reasons for refusal, please.
Okay, members. So we'll call it alphabetically. If you could just say for, against, or abstain, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Tara. I just want to say that I'm going to abstain on this. The reason why is because in agreeing this, we are basically just saying go to appeal. So I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bassinger, please.
I'm against the application, Tara. I phrased it that way because I'm a little confused exactly how we're voting.
So, Councillor Bassinger, we're voting for refusal for the 2 reasons that are shown on the screen.
Then I'm refusing.
So you're in favour. You're for that. Okay.
For it, then. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bell, please.
I don't know how to do that.
I'd rather appeal than judicial review, so I'm for this recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Hurd.
As chair, I will abstain.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hull. Councillor Hull? No. Councillor Jarvis.
I'm for, thank you.
I am back.
Oh, okay. Councillor Hull, how was your vote, please? Sorry.
I lost my internet connection.
Oh, okay.
So am I allowed to...
If you've lost your connection, you can't vote, I'm afraid.
Yes, you can't.
Councillor Lagan, please.
As the leader's prefixed her vote, I'd rather go to appeal because it's the right thing to do. I'm for the motion.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Morris.
Most definitely for.
Councillor Nunn. Councillor Nunn.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Siddle.
For.
Councillor Skeens.
For.
Councillor Stamp.
For.
Councillor Stilts.
For.
Councillor Swain.
Abstain.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Against.
And the result of that vote is 14 for, 1 against and 3 abstentions. Thank you.
I have that, and I do thank members. It's been a very long and grueling meeting, I have to say. Agenda item number 10, business by reason of special circumstances considered by the chairman to be urgent. I have none. So members, I do thank you for your contributions this afternoon.
Please, Chair. Question, please, Chair.
I'll allow this one if it's to the point, Christopher. Thank you.
Yep. I would just like to ask how much the legal advice cost us.
Well, I think that's a matter for another meeting. I'm now going to draw this special meeting to a close at 5:10. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised not to enter into any further discussion on this forum, and please leave the meeting promptly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.